overview on topicality, the disadvantage, and the case in order. The overview on topicality has 4 points. The first is that our interpretations are essentially the same. All I have to do is remove an evil or improve the status quo. This means that if I can show how we're avoiding the current march towards disaster coming out of the second card that I read to you, then I'm improving the status quo. That is reforming. Therefore, I'm meeting the interpretation, which means that you're going to vote for me on the reasonability framework that I established out of my last speech. Second, the plan has already, the legislation we're talking about has already passed, which means there are already harms in the status quo because courts are trying to meet the deadlines which only go into effect in 2012. This means that the trade barriers are already in effect and he doesn't have any ground loss, which brings me to my third point, which tells you that he's been unable to articulate any sort of ground loss. He ran his terrorism disadvantage. He hasn't told you anything else. There's no abuse in this round. Don't put on potential abuse. Extend that so the ground standard extends through. Since I'm providing for you a fair division of ground and he's had everything that he's wanted to in this round, then you should vote for the affirmative. Additionally, the last point is extend the reasonability standard. As long as I'm reasonably topical and provide for a fair debate, then you should vote for the affirmative on topicality. Let's go to the disadvantage. The last argument, extend it. Bathtubs are more dangerous than terrorists. They have killed more people than the terrorist attacks have since 9/11. I think that this shows to you that a risk of the affirmative impacts are going to outweigh the disadvantage. But go up to the turn and cross-apply from solvency that I extended in my last speech that tells you that we raise the cost of business by over $600 million, thereby not only decreasing our security, but doing it because we force a backlog of ships at ports, so giving them more time to tamper, but also forcing them to less secure routes, thereby giving terrorists more of an opportunity to tamper with the containers. We're thereby decreasing our security. A risk of this turn is going to mean you vote affirmative because there's really no impact. That impact defense card is my favorite. Go to the case. Extend that all of his arguments on case are defensive at best. With the risk of the turn, the disad, and no offense on case, the only hope is to vote for the affirmative. Extend that this is the biggest trade barrier we have ever imposed. We are literally going to be turning away a large majority of all the cargo that comes into the United States. This isn't a tax or a tariff. This is outright saying, no, you can't come in because you haven't gone through an x-ray. So all of his sketchy defense isn't going to get him out of the impact that there's a large risk of several scenarios for trade wars and a nuclear war because we'll all be divided into several bad factions that's going to risk the impact of the affirmative. Additionally, on advantage 2. He also said there's no scenario that Russia's really not that crazy, but I think we saw last August that Russia really is crazy when they tried to cut off all of the natural gas going into Europe through Ukraine. I think this tells you that we need to do everything we can to bridge the gap in EU-US relations so that we can help improve their energy security, thereby avoiding the possibility of Russia confronting Europe.